Hi, I'm Dana, and as of late, I've been seeing more content about estranged parents and cutting your parents off and all that kind of thing, because the algorithm's picked up on that's something that I watch all the way through because it's something I went through. And obviously, I end up reading the comments, and I've been seeing so many comments from people that are commenting on people that have been through horrible things with their parents, being like, gonna die one day though, aren't they? What are you gonna do then? What are you gonna do when your parent that you've got no contact with dies? And I think it's a really weird and horrible thing to comment on anybody's post about anything, first off. But that's another one of the things that I got to go through. And I feel very awkward and weird talking about this. I find it quite difficult and I don't really know how I'm meant to be about it. I think that's quite natural just given the topic of conversation and the fact that it is something that's a little bit taboo and not really something that's spoken about all that much, and something that is like sort of looked down on by a lot of people, combined with the fact that I'm autistic and I don't know how the fuck I'm meant to be about things anyway. So I know that a lot of this can come off as quite insensitive and like I'm laughing at it and blah blah. This is a huge trauma point for me. This is just how I'm coping and dealing with it. If it makes you uncomfortable that I'm having to laugh my way through it, then you don't need to watch this. I can't make it without laughing my way through it and just dealing with the awkwardness in that way. So, yeah. I think one of the things that really bothers me with this comment is that it's one that I saw a lot when I first went no contact with my mum, and it was one that had me an absolute mess. It really fucked with me, because I have the added thing of I stopped talking to my mum not that long after she'd gotten a cancer diagnosis. So I, of course, like, that's another thing I feel uncomfortable talking about, because I then get the whole, like, you abandoned your mother when she had cancer? And, like, yeah, I did. Because it suddenly became this whole way that she could, like, excuse not only any abuse that she had done, but the abuse could get worse because I have cancer. Duh. Do what I say. It was a very, very horrible time. So I stopped talking to her in April of 2022, and she passed away this August just gone in 2024. And it's one of those things that I'd been dreading for a long, long time, because I went no contact with all of my family because they all either treated me like she did or just did not give a shit about me and didn't pay any attention whatsoever. And I was like, there's no point having these people in my life. They're not giving anything. Like, not only are they not giving me anything positive, but they are actively making my life harder and more negative and worse. So I'm out. Which meant that I didn't have any way of getting updates on my mother, who had, she had lung and bowel cancer, and she'd had a tumour in the brain as well. I was still talking to her when she had brain surgery. I helped her recover from that. I helped her go through the process of getting that. You know, that was the thing, was most of my days were being up by caring for her, which I wouldn't have minded if she hadn't been being a fucking bitch to me the whole time. And also, anytime anybody was about, or anytime, like, the conversation turned to the people that were helping her, she'd go off about how my brother was the best person ever and was doing so much for her, when it's like, he's driving us to places and then I'm having to go in and deal with appointments and deal with all the medical stuff and do all of everything. I'm helping you shower, I'm helping you get dressed. Like, a little bit of appreciation would have been nice, but that's not what we're here for. But it meant that I had no way of finding out, like, is it getting better? Is it getting worse? No one told me anything. During the just over 2 years that I didn't speak to my mother, she texted me 3 times, I believe. Once she suggested that we went and got a cuppa together in the Tesco, which, no. Like, I'm sorry if I seem, like, really classist with that, but I'm sorry, if you're, like, disappointed and upset and traumatised your child to the point where they don't want to speak to you at all, meeting up in a supermarket fucking cafe isn't the one. She texted me again to let me know that it was getting better, and she texted me at some point some random shit about my brother. I don't even remember. Like, it was never any sort of message that I could actually reply to, you know? Like, it was just so clearly her being pissed that I wasn't there, but also not doing anything to try to fix the relationship or speak to me or, like, in any way communicate, you know? So about a month before she died, I got a message from one of, like, the family friends that didn't speak to me whatsoever during the you know, other 2 years. And they just let me know that she'd gone into hospital, and it's one of those things where I just didn't know what the fuck I was meant to do with that information, to be honest with you, because it's like, it's this woman that I don't speak to and I don't know why she's in hospital, and I don't want to talk to you because you've, you know, also not contacted me or reached out or said anything to me in 2 years. So I phoned up the hospital and I was very like, is she okay? Is she all right? What is going on? and they were very like, oh yeah, she's fine, she's been moved over into this other hospital. And I googled that because I was like, is it, you know, like end of life hospice shit, or is it just she's having this thing done here and she's off home soon? And everything I could find about it online looked like it was just, she's gonna be alright, she'll be off at home soon, you know. I showed it to friends and was like, does this look like my mum's gonna die here? Like, what, like, I'm sorry to put it on you, I know this is a big thing, what do you reckon? Because I don't think it looks like that. So if you tell me no, I'm not going to be like if she dies, I'm not going to be like, this is your fault. But if you say yes, I might actually contact them and put a bit more effort into finding out if my mum's on deathbed or not. And everyone agreed that it looked like everything would be all good. And then it was a random fucking day and I suddenly started getting messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years to let me know that my mum had died in a very passive aggressive shitty like, well, if you even care. And it's like, well, maybe if any of you had shown that you cared even a tiny little bit about me, you know? And it really pissed me off that I had someone being like, you should get in touch with your brother. My brother could get in touch with me, you know? Like, everyone did the whole, like, we've been trying to get in touch with you to let you know. And it's like, and nobody until the moment she died thought to message me on Facebook. The Facebook account that I've had since I was 12 years old that you're all friends with me on, because I just don't touch it, I've just left it there. None of you, my mother, my brother, aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends, not a single one of you until the moment she died thought to message me on Facebook. So just like that, my mum was dead, that was that. And I didn't know what the fuck I was supposed to do with that. So I listened to all of David Bowie's Scary Monsters and Super Creeps like all the way through 3 or 4 times. And then I watched Ashes all the way through. And then I just sort of like sat there and was like, oh, okay, that's that. I say listened and watched, I was crying like the entire time. I had like, I want to say it was like a day and a half maybe. Winter was doing something or another. There was some reason that they couldn't come over like immediately, but they came over like pretty much as soon as they could. But I had like a good chunk of time on my own where I did not, like, I was in shock, I think, basically, because I'd just had a bunch of people from my past that I hadn't spoken to in years message me that my mother was dead. So I think I was most likely in some sort of shock, very numb, but crying, could not stop myself crying. Anytime I saw anything that made me think of my mother in any way, and it was everything suddenly had an association to my mother, just made me start sobbing. And that's where I think the autism brain took over and was like, what do people do when their parents die? Well, Alex Drake's parents died, and she had the whole thing with Bowie, so I'm just going to listen to the Bowie album that like inspired this show and then watch the show and just really fucking latched onto Alex Drake as like, bitch is me, you know? Like she'd already been my comfort character for a hot damn minute, and for like the day after my mum died, I really latched onto her and was like, okay, we can do this. Your mum died, my mum's dead, let's get through it. And then winter came over, and I often struggle with how much to say, because it's one of those things where I absolutely adore my friendship with Winter because we can have the conversations that are a little bit tricky and a little bit tough and sort of communicate with each other in a way that perhaps most friendships wouldn't. So obviously my mum had been very abusive. I hadn't spoken to her in 2 years because she was often quite horrible to me. And Winter's the person that knows the vast majority of the intimate details of my trauma, you know? Like, they're the one person I can trauma dump on and shit, and it doesn't feel like I'm trauma dumping on them. So they were very like, your mother's a bitch anyway, like, why are you upset? And it's like, that's the thing, they weren't being like that. They were, you know, they were processing it and trying to support me, and I ended up being like, the way you're supporting me actually really isn't making me feel better. And then they supported me in a way that did, and it feels kind of like I'm shitting on them by telling you that. I'm not though. It's that my last flatmate constantly was like, and you mentioned this about Winter, you said this about them. And then I'd go to Winter and be like, do you mind that I said that? And they'd be like, no, because that's just how it is. But yeah, I think that when when a parent dies, usually it's obviously a horrible thing for the person to go through, and obviously everyone immediately flocks around them and is like, this massive part of your life has just passed away and this is going to be very difficult. When you haven't spoken to that person in 2 years because they were horrible to you and you're quite open about that, it's difficult to know how the fuck to support that death being a thing and how you're going to feel about it and stuff. I feel like that's a very normal thing to have to deal with in a friendship when that kind of thing has happened, to be like, this is how I need to be supported right now, this is what's going to make me feel better, not what you're doing. But it was that situation with Winter that gave me this big realisation of, I was like mourning my mum and being really upset about it and crying about it all the time and stuff, because the way that I see my mum is very much split into two. And I was very, very much mourning the person. You know, like, my mother had been through a lot of horrible things growing up, like, even as a full-grown adult, you know? She'd been through various types of trauma, she'd had so many different lessons put upon her, and you know, as a person, I feel an overwhelming amount of empathy for my mother, and I can see why she made a lot of the choices and decisions that she made. And, you know, as a person, I liked knowing that she was out there doing her own thing. I wanted her to continue to be out there doing her own thing. I just didn't want to be a part of it. You know, when she was doing her own thing and I was there, it was very negative towards me doing my own thing. You know, I recognised, like, the creativity in my mother, and the very, like, just, there were so many ways in which I very, very fully saw her as a person. And I don't want any random person out in the world to die, you know? I don't really overly particularly want anybody to die. But especially when it's like, she was just a person, you know? Like, I know that to those close to me, it's like, she was your abuser and she traumatised you in lots of ways. So you're like, you're kind of fucked up now because of her. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. But that's where the split comes. And I'm like, as a mother, she was not great, you know? Like, she really didn't do the best job. She really didn't care about me in the way that you should care about people in general, never mind your own fucking kid. Like, seeing her as my parent, as my mother, I don't care, you know? Like, you weren't a mother to me, you weren't fucking nice to me most of the time. I have so many, like, deeply ingrained issues from the way that you treated me and spoke about me and spoke to me, and just, I mostly had quite a horrible time while I was around my mother, especially in private, you know? Like, that's the thing as well, is that so many people thought that I had the best ever relationship with my mother, because that was what she tried to show to people in public, and I went along with it to not disappoint her. So, and like, it was quite a deep and big realisation for me to be like, I'm grieving that a person has died. I'm mourning that, like, that life that deserved to exist, because she, like, as much as she was shitty to me, I don't think she was like an evil, horrible, terrible person, you know? Like, it's fully valid to, like, mourn and be sad about that. But I was not sad that my mother was dead. And I'm still kind of not, you know? Like, I'm doing this, like, almost 6 months on, because I've wanted to do this for a little good fair while, but I kept waiting for it to hit, you know? Like, I've been sort of waiting for the day that I wake up and I'm like, my mummy! And it just hadn't come. Like, I'd had 2 years of processing and understanding that the mother that I deserve and the mother that I wanted and the mother that, you know, everyone should fucking get wasn't there, you know? Whether I went and started talking to her or not, the mother that I wanted, the mother that I needed, the mother that I deserved, never existed. She wasn't there. I'd already done the mourning for, like, I'm someone that doesn't have a mum. The fact that she was actually dead, I was sad that she was dead as a person. You know, I didn't think she, like, deserved to die. I didn't want her to die. I already didn't have a mum. It didn't really make any difference to me in that regard. So I think it's kind of obvious that when I was phoning up hospitals and trying to figure stuff out, it was because I was very like, if she's on her deathbed, I maybe want the chance to speak to her, you know? I didn't make that decision. I hadn't, like, made my choice of, like, do I want to speak to her before she dies or not? Because it's one of those things where I tried many, 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 many times across several years to fix our relationship, to talk about the things that were going wrong, to talk about the things that upset me, to talk about ways that we could generally move forward and respect each other and have a healthy, happy relationship. And she was unresponsive. She refused. You know, it was always, that didn't happen, you're lying, you've always been like this. There was never a moment that she was responsive to changing anything within our relationship, because she didn't think that she had ever done anything wrong. And it's one of those things where, yeah, maybe on her deathbed as she's dying, she would have realised that she had done me wrong, and she would have apologised, and I would have gotten to be held by my mother and whatever else. And I think there's also every chance that I would have gone in and she would have been like, and where the fuck have you been for the last 2 years? I think that's the most likely option, to be honest with you. I genuinely think that I would have walked in to my mother on her deathbed and she would have just berated me and been like, oh, where the fuck have you been? You know, I've been doing this and I've been feeling like this, and where have you been? I don't think it would have been pleasant. I don't think it would have been nice. And regardless of that fact, I am still kind of quite angry that I didn't get the choice. You know, I didn't get to make that decision, because everything that I reached out to, everything that I could see, read that she was going to be all right. And there's definitely like a level of like that being a trigger point for me, because my dad had been in and out of hospital a whole bunch when I was a teenager. So the last time he went in, we were all like, Dad's in hospital again. And then I got a phone call where they were like, oh, you should come and visit your dad. And I absolutely shit myself, because I was like an hour and a half away, like hour and a half away drive as well. It's not like I could like, you know, run or whatever. So I phoned my mum and was like, we need to go and see Dad. He's gonna die. That's that. I hung up. And then the hospital phoned me back and was like, your dad's dead. And I was like, okay. So I never got the chance to have any sort of discussion with my parents prior to their deaths. And I think it kind of fucked me up a bit more with my dad, because we were rebuilding the relationship. He was receptive to talking about things, and there were lots of things that he like knew he'd fucked up on and he wouldn't give me actual answers to, instead of just saying sorry over and over again. But you know, like, I was trying because he was trying, whereas with my mum, she wouldn't try. The one bit of communication that I've had with my family throughout all of this is I asked my cousin if she could find out where the body was, because I would have liked to go and see my mum's body. And she ignored me. I didn't get to. She just completely blanked me. I couldn't figure out where my mum's body was. I couldn't go and see it. And I thought that was going to fuck me up more than it has, to be honest with you. Because when my dad died, my dad was still a part of my life. Like, I was only 18 and he'd been trying to help repair the relationship between us and talking things through and stuff. So I don't know if I was hallucinating. I don't know if it was just the shock of it all, the mourning, the grief. I was having a little bit of a mental time when my dad died, because my dad had died. And it was one of those things where I think it was quite a gap. My dad had started to decompose by the time I went to go and see him. Like, it had been quite a good gap between his death and me seeing his body. And during that time, I thought I was seeing him everywhere. There was a part of me that was like, I know he's dead, because we've been to the hospital and collected his things. Like, I have his mobile phone and his wallet and stuff. Like, I know that he's not out there doing stuff, because he can't, because I've got his shit. But I just kept seeing him, and I could not actually believe that my dad was dead until the moment I saw his body. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a whole good bit of closure there. And I was absolutely terrified that was going to happen with my mum. I was so scared that I was just going to start, like, you know, every fucking aisle in Asda, she's down there and all that kind of stuff, because that was what it was like with my dad until I still saw his body. And I have moments, I definitely do, but it's like maybe once a month, and it'll be like someone who actually does kind of bear some vague resemblance to my mum. So I don't feel like I'm like losing it, you know, it's that I've seen something that prompted the memory. But I did have a big fear that I would be like hallucinating, seeing my mum in places, like follow me around or something, until I saw her body. And then I didn't get to. And I do think that that would have been a really healthy bit of closure for me personally. I know that a lot of people don't want to be around a dead body. I get that, you know, like anything around death, I think, is such a personal choice in how you want to grieve and mourn, that you know, the way that I want to do it is just the way that I want to do it. I'm not trying to put any sort of message out about it, because I think it is an incredibly personal thing. But I find a lot of closure and a lot of, like, it fully computes in my brain when I see the dead body. I get it now. You're dead. You're gone. They're not in there anymore. It computes. And not getting to see the body definitely kind of fucked me up a little bit. And that's one of the things that I'm going to carry as like a deep regret throughout my life, I think, is the fact that I didn't get to do any sort of goodbye from my mother. And I know lots of people, like, I've talked about this on TikTok and in other places, because I do think that I would benefit from having like a place of mourning for my parents. I don't want to... It started raining really heavily. You're going to be able to hear that. I'm sorry, we're approaching the end. I can't... It's hailing. I can't do anything about this. I know lots of people don't like gravestones, and there's various things people don't like. Again, this is just me. It's just how I feel. I feel like I would really benefit from having a place to go and grieve, like a gravestone, like something like that. Because we just scattered my dad's ashes in Otter's Pool somewhere. It was some random place my mum drove us to. I wouldn't know how to fucking get back there, even though I know it's in Otter's Pool, you know? And it was also fucking horrible, because the wind was blowing towards us, and I was like, guys, do you not see what's going to happen here? And everyone fucking blanked me, so my family threw his ashes and got covered in my dad while I was just stood off in the corner, like, I can't believe this is fucking happening. It was a mess. And it's one of those things where, like, I don't think it's necessarily fucked me up, you know, like, I don't think it makes things worse necessarily, but I do think I would benefit from having a place and having that kind of closure. And obviously people have suggested, like, you can just do your own thing. You can light a candle, you can do this, you can do that, you can choose a place, and that just doesn't work for me. I don't know if it's just the type of person I am, I don't know if it's the autism, I don't know what it is at play for it. Maybe it is just how I feel, but it's not official, it's not a proper place, it wouldn't make me feel anything, you know? When my dad passed, I also left, like, a little letter in with him to, like, go into the cremation with him, that was just very, like, thank you for being my dad, I'm sorry that we've had these struggles in our relationship, but I really appreciate what we've had and what you've taught me and blah blah blah. You know, it was a multi-page fucking letter with, like, all of my feelings about my father. It was very personal and emotional, and it's one of those things where I'm not, like, an overly religious or spiritual person or whatever, and I don't really have, like, a firm grasp on what I believe happens after death. But I did feel, you know, that's the thing with death, is that I stopped being like, is it logical, is it spiritual, is it religious? I just go for, like, whatever the fuck makes me feel better, because, like, they're dead and I don't know what happens, so it's just about how I feel now, innit? But that made me feel like I'd, you know, sent him off with a kindness, like, given him something nice, and, like, I don't know, it just felt like a very positive thing for me, and that was the type of thing that I did sort of want to do for my mum. So I'd sent the message to my cousin being like, I want to see the body, would you know where it is? And I sat down to, like, write this letter, and I just stared at a blank piece of paper for, like, fucking hours, because I was like, I haven't benefited from this woman being in my life, you know? Like, what the fuck am I gonna write? Thanks for giving birth to me. I've spent a very long time really wishing I wasn't alive because of the things that you did and said to me as a child and the way you treated me as a teenager. Like, thanks for giving birth to me and then making me feel like I wished you hadn't. You know, like, there's lots and lots of ways in which I think my mother, like, helped make me as a person, and there's some of the most negative parts of my fucking personality, you know? Like, I'm gonna round it off there because I feel like I keep rambling, because I find it very easy with the autism content to be like, there's this part, that's the part I'm going to talk about. And this kind of stuff, when it comes to, like, family and trauma and estrangement, like, it just feels like there's so much to shove into one bit to have, like, actual context and to be able to have, like, nuanced conversation about it. I struggle a bit more with it. So if anyone does have, like, any, like, specific little bits that you want me to cherry pick and talk about, I do want to make more content about, like, family estrangement and death and stuff, because it's been my experience, and I'd like to, you know, it's been fucking horrible. It's been a really, really horrible experience. So if I can use that to try and help some other people out a little bit, at least it's not all for nothing. But yeah, I'm leaving it there for today. If you want to see more of this type of content, I don't make an awful lot of it. I mostly make stuff about autism, don't I? If you're a regular, you know. But I feel like a lot of autistic people and, like, neurodivergent people in general end up with these types of situations, and it's fucking hard. And I've been able to deal with, like, so much of myself and my past and, like, my shit in general by talking about it here. So I definitely would like to incorporate this to be a part of it too. How healthy, me doing online therapy with myself for hundreds of people to watch. It's cool, it's a good time. So yeah, if you wanted to like and subscribe, you can do, there's no pressure. If you wanted to follow me over on Blue Sky, Instagram or TikTok, you can also do that. I post all sorts of bollocks over on those as well. And you can also follow me over on Patreon if you would like to be part of the Discord, and you can read. I'm sorry, it's, if you would like to know more, you can read more on the Patreon. This has been a rough fucking video. I want to stop speaking. I also have a Ko-fi, and I'm going now. So whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you have a lovely morning, evening, day, afternoon, week, month, year, and I will see you again in a couple of days.